What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the final deep dive of the 2024 high school football season. Kevin, I am both happy and it's a bittersweet feeling because I am sad because I enjoy doing these weekly with you. We've covered so much this year, a lot of great players, a lot of great teams. But yeah, season's over. As crazy as that is. How you doing, my friend?
It's sad. Like you said, bittersweet. This was a great season for me. I loved every week. I've loved doing these videos with you guys. Uh, Sitting there in Chattanooga, I was freezing, watching the final game on Thursday night. Uh, and I love going to the state championship games. I was always just like, it's a culmination of the season. I love being in the college stadium for the last game, seeing the trophies handed out, and always hearing "We are the champions" at the end of every game. It's always great. But yeah, bittersweet feeling. It's can finally let out a big sigh of relief that the season's over.
Yeah, I agree. It was a long 3 days, man. 9 games, we covered all nine. Admittedly, the one you and I are going to talk about, I did not come out for the fourth until the fourth quarter because I had some things to write, I had some videos to work on, and then when I look up, assuming Baylor's destroying McCallie because that's what they did in the regular season, not the case. McCallie repeats as Division II AAA state champions. The Blue Tornado rule this class. Outside of that 1 year from Baylor a couple years ago where they
Mhm.
beat NBA, it's been McCallie's class for the last 5, 6 years.
Yeah,
Um,
last
they
5.
they they run Chattanooga. Simple as that. Um, you were there. You watched all of it. What'd you see out of that game?
That was a crazy game. It's one of the biggest comebacks I've ever seen. In the moment, I thought it was the biggest, and then I had to remind myself the 16-5A game when Farragut came back against Independence, because Independence was killing them in that game, and I think that's the craziest comeback I've ever seen. But this was right there with it. It was Baylor 21 skunked them. They threw that. It was almost a 70-yard touchdown pass, and it just felt like, oh my god, the wheels are coming off. This is about to get ugly. And then it was the third play of the next possession. The little running back who ended up winning MVP of the game
Yeah.
just put his nose down, trucked two Baylor defenders. And I remember sitting in the stands like, oh, they don't care. They're just playing football now. They don't care about the score. They're just playing football. And then ended up getting a score right at the end of the half, um, bring it closer. And then they just came out. Both teams it was a tale of two halves. It was completely flipped beginning of the second quarter or second half, excuse me. And when McCallie scored that second touchdown, you just kind of look up and go, it's a one-score game. Like, all right. And for whatever reason, Baylor just couldn't get it figured out. It just felt like they took uh, their feet off the pedal, so to speak. And
Mhm.
McCallie they didn't quit. That championship DNA was ingrained in them. And that was one of the most exciting last drives I've ever seen in a game. Uh, Overall was incredible. And also always adds to it the elements, either sitting in the rain or sitting in the freezing cold,
Yep.
is always memorable. And that game is one of the coldest I've ever been at. So I'll remember this one for a very long time.
Yeah, they outscored them 21-0 in the second half. I'm pulling up the stats now because I'd heard something. I believe they held him to, I believe it was like 68 yards in the second half or something like that. It was something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But talk to me about that last drive. You and I are kind of talking off air. They go for it on fourth down in their own territory after getting pinned on not even the one. It was on the goal line,
Yeah.
but they pinned him there. Just talk to me about what's going through your mind when you see that.
Number uh, one of the players who like completely stood out to me in that game, number 5 for Baylor, he had the touchdown. He had dropped interception, almost a pick six. He did have an interception in the end zone, had a couple other pass defense. He ends up downing the ball at the 1 yard line on that punt. It just felt like, okay, Baylor's kind of let this one slip away, but then they're still making plays. They come out, it's fourth down inside their own 20, or yeah, almost inside their own 10 even.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking there's 4.5 minutes left. You have all three of your timeouts. Just punt it. Why are you going for it right now? And they gave it to the eventual MVP of the game, put his head down, bounced it to the outside. ended up getting the first down, and a couple Baylor defenders got up with their heads hanging like, oh my God, we can go keep doing this again.
Yep.
And fortuitous, they had him beat right then.
Yep.
They didn't want to play anymore. They didn't want to keep tackling that guy. And then McCallie did what seemed like what was working for him all night. Once the running game got going, then the play action pass started working. They were hitting tight ends on crossing routes over the middle. Really good contested catches. They hit one of the guys we'll talk about, Keyshawn Taboteau. Made a great catch on the sideline. Watched it on video. Can't believe he was in bounds. Made it on the sideline. It looked great. And they end up going down, scoring the game-winning touchdown. Just tore the hearts out of Baylor's chests on that last drive. It was incredible to watch.
Then Baylor they think they had about 15 seconds left or something. Not a whole lot of time. They get decent field position afterwards. Then just they tried the toss back tried it way too early. I thought just try a couple things down the sideline, get something, but they fumble it and McCallie repeats. Baylor 289 yards of offense in the first half, 65 in the second half.
Yeah,
just absolutely shut down. McCallie runs Chattanooga. McCallie runs D2-AAA. I know from talking with some players, Innsworth absolutely gutted because they know if they had played better offensively, could have had a shot. So, heartbreaker for Baylor yet again. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they are probably the favorites in D2-AAA next year with some of the guys they got coming. They're going to be it's a team I wouldn't want to play next year. Simple as that. It'll be interesting. But McCallie, who knows? I ain't betting against them. I might just pick McCallie for the hell of it. They keep winning, so why not? Let's get into some player breakdowns. Start with Baylor first because they are a team absolutely loaded with talent. We were talking on the sideline, me and Cam, and we're talking for McCallie, this one might feel better than last year. Obviously, you look at the teams last year and they're very equal. I mean, on both sides, you just have D1 dudes everywhere. And McCallie they have some D1 guys now, but nothing maybe like what Baylor has, especially in their backfield. Shakai Mills-Knight, Gabriel Georges for Baylor, unbelievable running backs. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Gabriel Georges wins the next two Mr. Football awards in D2-AAA because he's really good. Shakai Mills-Knight, we'll start with him, the Ole Miss signee. Thought he played well in the first half, and then the second half just completely taken out of the game.
Yeah, not really sure what happened. They had a great 1-2 punch. He had 8 carries for 40 yards in the first half. Didn't make any outstanding plays, but he had a couple just like holes opened up, put his head down, got what he needed to get. Just looked like, all right, this is the workhorse back. And then in the second half, it wasn't necessarily that he played bad. It was just the holes were not there. He was getting hit in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage on every handoff. But the stats were kind of staggering when I looked at him. He had 6 carries for 3 yards in the second half. And what was more incredible about that was that they had a 21-6 lead in the second half. And you would think, keep giving it to the future SEC back, bleed the clock, get those tough yards. And instead it was the complete opposite way. And that's like the heart of a champion that McCallie showed that they have. Just they were able to completely neutralize one of the best players in the state.
And Gabriel Georges actually gets hurt in the second half. He's out.
He did.
Shakai Mills-Knight, you would think heavy workload. They just went away from him. Another future Division I guy, Cam Sparks. Quiet game. Yeah,
he had 3 catches, ended up being for 8 yards, but he lost 9 yards on that last play. Just like it was a hook and ladder. He ended up throwing it back kind of to nobody. But he had 1 catch for 12 yards in the first half, and then he had a bubble screen where he made a couple guys miss. Got 5 yards on that, looked okay. He almost had a touchdown right before the second halftime break. His feet ended up being out of bounds. Would have been a great play. It was just a little bit overthrown. Tough play to make. But other than those, he didn't really do a whole lot. Again, McCallie just neutralizing one of the best players in the state. We saw I've seen both of these teams earlier in the season. I've seen him make plays. Uh, Looked good, really good against NBA. And then in this game, it was just kind of what? Oh, I didn't even realize he was on the field some of the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he had a bad game. They just did a really good job of neutralizing his effectiveness.
One guy for Baylor that did have a good game, the Tennessee signee, Jakeem Dotson,
Yes, he
big
did.
touchdown reception. He was a big spark for them. Let's talk about what you saw out of him.
He is one of my favorite players. I saw him last year in the playoff game at Clarksville when Collierville upset Clarksville on the road. He made a play, made a great touchdown catch in that game. I've seen him twice this year, had a touchdown in each one of those games. This guy shows up as a Tennessee alum and fan of that program. I am very excited for him to come play in Josh Heupel's offense. This guy shows up, epitome of like he's in high school, right? He's not a professional, but you can tell this guy is dedicated to his craft. He's a great route runner, plays fast, creates separation. He's just carries himself on a different level. You can tell this guy is all about it. He's not just out there based off pure athleticism. He works on what he does. He looks like a receiver, what you want out of a receiver. He's precise, in and out of his breaks and out of his cuts. His release is great. Does a good job of stacking on top of defensive backs to create separation vertically. And the long ball, this guy and Nico are going to have some fun catches to see in the next couple of years.
He's a perfect fit for that offense. It's unreal. Another guy for Baylor that did have a good game. The Wake Forest signee Joel Lowenberg, 9 tackles, playing with the cast on his right hand. It didn't seem to matter. He showed up for the Red Raiders the other night as well.
Yeah, he was all over the field. It was not his fault that they lost that game at all. He was making plays all over the place. A lot of in the box tackles. Just kept bringing the hard hat and lunch pail to work every time. Like I was trying to keep my eyes on him. A lot of players in the game, and every time I saw him, it seemed like he was making a tackle. Every time I saw someone get tackled and got up, oh yeah, that was number 4 again. And he was just all over the place, making plays. Just a solid player. He flipped first time we saw him. He was committed to MTSU. Now he's going to Wake Forest. Definitely looks like a future ACC linebacker. Looks like Wake got a steal out of him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else from Baylor maybe you want to talk about before we head over to the winning side?
So the 2 guys that I do want to talk about, number 21, Bradley Ilunga Baselli.
Yes.
He was another linebacker for them. He played. He had much more of an impact in the NBA game, but he was a captain for Baylor. 2-way player. He had a couple catches as a tight end. He's a thumper. He's going to Buffalo. Like he was one of my favorite players this year, just from not even like he's a linebacker. Like he's a football player. Yeah. He had a couple like tough injuries in this game early on. He injured his right shoulder. Trainers had to come out, help him off the field. And then on the last play of the game, where McCallie scored the touchdown, it looked like it tore his ACL. He had a bad knee injury. He was on the ground pounding, and they had to help him off the field again. But just like the definition of leaving it all out on the field for that guy. I really enjoyed watching him play this year. And then we already mentioned his name, David Gabriel Georges. At the NBA game, I wasn't aware of him going into it, but he took carries away from Shakai Mills-Knight. And I remember going, who is this little sophomore? I had to look him up. Number 0 was running all over the field. And then going into this game, if I could have bet on this game, I would have put money that he was going to be the MVP. And through the first 3 quarters, it looked like he was going to. He was averaging almost 12 yards a carry. And then he got injured and didn't come back into the game. And like, I don't root for anybody in these games, but my heart was broken when he did not come back into that game. In my opinion, I said it earlier, he's the best player in the state. Put money on it. He's definitely the betting favorite for winning Mr. Football and D2-3A, not only next year, but the next 2 years running. That guy he will have every program in the country knocking on his door, calling his phone. sliding in his DMs, whatever it is, they all will want number 0 at Baylor.
10 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged, was that 11.9 yards per carry? Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good.
He must have had, I would say he had at least like 10 forced missed tackles in that game. He was just toying with everybody. And on that last play, that was the one, it felt like the only carry of the game where he didn't make somebody miss.
Yeah. Tennessee, get at him. Do it. Keep him in state. Yeah, he's special, man. I remember Shakai Mills' night when he was a sophomore and thinking, man, this kid's going to be really good. Gabriel George is that, but then some, I think. He's really good. Like, he's phenomenal. Big reason why I think they could win it next year and the year after, but they got to get that. They got to get that monkey off their back because McCallie's just handing it to him when it matters most. So, to the winning side, a lot of guys to talk about for them. We'll start with Keyshawn Tabito. He had a big touchdown catch at the end of the first half, which, in my opinion, changed the whole game.
Yeah. So this guy, again, saw him earlier this year at Father Ryan. Didn't do a whole lot in that game, but they motioned him around, used him in a variety of ways. In this game, he came up clutch, both at the end of the first half and on that final drive. He had a couple big catches. I think one of them was on 3rd or 4th down. Yeah. It was probably 3rd down, contested catch to kind of get them in range. Had another one on the sideline. You said that touchdown catch, tough catches, not like wide open, easy, right on the money, target, right in his chest in between the numbers. These are like falling Willie Mays style over the shoulder catches, sliding out of bounds at full speed, just making like ridiculous catches look easy in clutch moments when all the pressure is not only on him, but on the program to step up, to make something happen. He was really impressive to me. Also, the punt returner, he had a 12-yard punt return, made a guy miss. I feel like I say it a lot. He's one of my favorite players. This was a guy that I went into this game looking forward to seeing, and he surpassed my expectations with just the timing and the clutch nature of his plays.
My cat agrees. That's why she wanted to come up and join, apparently. Chasten Smith did not play. I did want to mention him. New Notre Dame commitment. Excited to see what he does. Seen his film from last year. He's going to be a special dude. I'm excited about him. Anybody coming from these schools that's going to go to your school, you're getting a guy. Simple as that. Carson Lawrence, he's the Vandy signee, correct?
Yeah.
Isaac Leadham's favorite player of the week, just for the simple fact he's going to Vandy. Made some big plays too.
Yeah, he had kind of like McCallie, he had a tale of two halves. He started out the first drive for Baylor. I think he had on defense, he had a missed tackle or a broken tackle, like playing on defense. Like he tried to make a tackle and someone broke it on him. And then first drive on offense, I think he had a drop on offense. Second drive, he comes out, has another missed tackle. It was just like going through him, keeping stats, and I'm like, oh man, he's not really playing well. And then the second drive of the second half is when he busted out. He has this big 44-yard catch, a dig route over the middle, makes one guy miss, makes the second guy miss. Third guy goes to force the fumble and doesn't get it, gets down to the 1-yard line, sets up the score on the next play. And it felt like with that play, the whole game changed.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily the touchdown. It was just that play to set it up and go, oh, wait a minute, they're in this game. And then on defense, he ended up making a few plays on making a couple tackles. He had a big catch, I think, on that last drive as well. He ended up making plays when they needed to. He bounced back. He didn't hang his head, keep making bad plays. They trusted him, didn't pull him or anything like that. Again, Vandy's getting a stud with this guy. I love his length. In the first game against Father Ryan that I saw, they used him kind of like a linebacker. He was really towards the line of scrimmage. In this game against Baylor, he was definitely a safety, playing deep, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, playing a lot of different coverages. He did have a touchdown saving tackle on Gabriel George's I think he made like 3 guys miss right up the middle, and then Lawrence ended up tackling him kind of as the last gasp. So Lawrence going to Vandy as a Tennessee fan, I'm not really happy about that, but I'll still be a fan of him.
Let me tell you, Isaac, unbelievably excited for him. Was there anybody else from McCallie, or was it just those two?
Those were the 2 from McCallie. Baylor completely loaded, which just kind of added to the upset of the day because besides the guys that we mentioned, their quarterback was a Mr. Football finalist. They have a safety, Colby Barrett. They have a defensive lineman, number 99, and they also have Gabriel Georges that we talked about, number 0. So
every
they
single phase of the game.
not only were they loaded this year, but they're going to stay loaded coming back for next year. All these guys, and I'm sure there'll be a fire in them like nobody in the state has seen for a while. We saw what happened in the 6A game with teams that end up coming a little short, and then they use it as fuel for the entire offseason. I'd be very wary of Baylor next year to see what kind of fire they're going to play with.
Yeah, you mentioned the 6A game. Oakland gets their get back against Houston, and boy, did they get their get back. DeJuan Morris finishes his career 3 touchdowns. Craig Tutt, he's a Mr. Football finalist this year. I don't know if he'll win it. I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. He wins the damn thing next year. He's really good.
Yeah, right.
He was unbelievable the other night. TT Hill scores twice. Oakland is Oakland. They're back. Last year was a fluke. They're the kings of 6A. So fun weekend. Admittedly, I was a little, we don't root for teams to win, but seeing Page lose really was a bummer. Just to see the kids. I know they've worked so hard. Sevier County's got a stud at quarterback, and I know they're not in our coverage area, but man, Graham Simpson at Westview, he's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Just a freshman. He's going to be a guy we're talking about for years. Eli Owens dominated that Alcoa game, but Graham, 4,000 yards as a freshman, and the state record's 11,000 yards. That's getting shattered. Yeah. So,
yeah.
A lot of good football, a lot of great players, really long, fun weekend. I'm exhausted. I'm kind of got Mr. Football Tuesday, but outside of that, we're done. Just focusing on postseason award stuff now and maybe doing some way too early predictions for next year. How about that? That'll be fun. So, Kevin, man, we'll expand upon this next year. It's going to be a lot more fun. Maybe do some off-season stuff. Who knows? But it was fun doing this with you and adding something else new to 615 Preps.
Yeah, this was awesome this year. I loved every week prepping for it, going to games, doing these videos, talking about this stuff with you guys. It's been fantastic.
You won't find this anywhere else. I'll say that. So for myself, Kevin, everybody with 615 Preps, thanks for tuning into these this year. We'll have more next year, or more and more next year. So be sure to tune in all that. Thanks again. See you guys.